I used to think silence was a sign of peace, that if two people could sit in the same room without talking, it meant they were comfortable, safe. That was before I realized silence can also scream. Our house is old. Stone walls, creaky floorboards, and a narrow porch that groans every time you step on it. It sits just outside a small town where nothing big ever happens. Except, of course, behind closed doors. My wife Anna always made things look picture perfect. She's the kind of woman who color codes her calendar, folds towels like a hotel, and always smells faintly of lavender. That damn lavender. It's in the soaps, the candles, the linen spray on our pillows. Everyone who visits says your home is so peaceful. I smile. I nod. But for the past 6 months, I've come to hate that smell. Because I now associate it with lying eyes and half-finished sentences. We've been married 10 years. 2 kids. A house we worked hard for. People still comment on how solid we are. But that image, it's crumbling. Bit by bit. Last Tuesday, I came home earlier than usual. A client canceled a meeting, so I took the scenic route, grabbed some groceries, and pulled into our driveway a little after 3. The house was too quiet. The kids were with her mother. I walked into the kitchen and saw Anna sitting at the table holding a sealed envelope. Her face was pale. Her eyes red. Not crying, but like she had been. She didn't notice me at first. Just stared at that envelope like it might explode. When she finally looked up, she startled. "You're home early," she said, quickly sliding the envelope under a stack of magazines. I tried to act normal. "Yeah. Meeting got moved. Everything okay?" She hesitated for half a second too long. "Of course. Just paying bills." But her hands were still trembling when she reached for her tea. And when she kissed my cheek, it felt rehearsed. Her lips were cold, distant. That night, after she showered, I went back to the kitchen. The magazines were still there, but the envelope was gone. I didn't ask about it. Something in me knew that if I pulled that thread, I wouldn't like what unraveled. So I climbed into bed beside her, listened to the sound of her breath as she pretended to sleep, and stared at the ceiling for hours. This wasn't the first time I caught her hiding something. Last month it was a phone call that ended too fast. Before that, a receipt in her coat pocket from a place we'd never been together. Little things. Things you talk yourself out of questioning when you're too scared of the answer. But now I'm starting to think the person I married might be someone else entirely. And that envelope? That was the first real crack in the mask. I haven't seen it since, but I've started locking my office drawer. And I check the cameras when she's not home. Because if Anna is hiding something big, I need to find out before it destroys everything. 3 days passed since the envelope. 3 days of forced smiles, autopilot conversations, and her humming in the kitchen like nothing was wrong. But I was watching now. Not in a dramatic, pacing the floor kind of way. No. I watch quietly. The way you watch a wild animal that might bolt if it senses you're looking. Anna had a rhythm. Up at 6:30, kids' lunches packed by 7, coffee in the same chipped mug she refuses to throw out, then out the door by 8:15 to drop them at school. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, she volunteered at the community center. On paper, everything looked normal. But the way she clutched her phone tighter when I walked into the room, the quick taps to close a screen, the overly bright tone when I asked how her day was, that wasn't normal. So I started checking the small things. First, the trash. I felt disgusting digging through it after she went to bed, but I didn't care. Bills, receipts, packaging. Looking for something, anything. Most of it was harmless. Grocery store. Dry cleaner. But one crumpled paper near the bottom caught my eye. A prescription slip. Not hers. It had my brother's name on it. That was when my stomach turned. I hadn't spoken to Mark in over 2 years. Not since the blowout at Dad's funeral. We never patched things up, and I was fine with that. He was always reckless, always manipulative. He hurt too many people and walked away like nothing happened. Last I heard, he moved 3 towns over and was doing construction work. What the hell was Anna doing with his prescription? I didn't ask her. Not yet. I needed more. So the next morning, after she left with the kids, I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened her closet. It felt like crossing a line, violating something sacred. But if she was lying to me, was there anything sacred left? Her clothes were arranged like a showroom. Tops by color, shoes in labeled boxes, even her scarves were ironed. But behind one of the storage bins on the top shelf, tucked where it took me a chair and a stretch to reach, was a small black notebook. No lock. Just a ribbon bookmark, soft from being flipped through often. My hands were sweating as I opened it. The first few pages were boring. Shopping lists. Meal plans. Then. Page 8. Mark called again. I told him to stop, but he won't. He knows I haven't told him yet. If he finds out, it's over. Page 10. I dreamed about the cabin again. The night it happened. I still see the blood. Sometimes I wonder if it was really an accident. I should have come clean then. I dropped the notebook. The cabin. I hadn't thought about that place in years. My grandparents owned it when we were kids. Mark and I used to go up there with our parents every summer until the fire. One year it burned down after a storm, or at least that's what they told us. But now it felt like that memory had teeth. What the hell happened at that cabin? What is Anna hiding with my brother? And what exactly did she mean by the night it happened? I stared at the pages, hands shaking, breath caught somewhere between panic and fury. Because it was no longer a question of whether she was hiding something. Now it was a question of how long she'd been lying to me. And just how deep it all goes. I didn't sleep that night. The notebook sat on the kitchen table, mocking me. Open to page 10 like it wanted me to keep reading. But I didn't. Not yet. Some part of me was afraid of what the rest might say. Instead, I stared out the window. The lavender bushes swayed in the wind like they were whispering things I wasn't ready to hear. The next morning, after dropping the kids off, I called in sick to work and drove. One straight shot up Route 89, past the gas stations and cornfields until I reached a stretch of woods I hadn't seen in over a decade. The cabin, or what was left of it, sat half swallowed by trees. I parked on the dirt shoulder and walked in slowly. No locks, no doors anymore. Just what remained, scorched walls, collapsed beams, nature reclaiming everything we once thought was permanent. I hadn't been here since I was 22. The night I told myself never to think about again. It was late July. We were staying at the cabin for a weekend. Anna, Mark, and me. Back then, Anna and I had only been dating for a year. Mark had just come out of rehab. Everyone thought he was doing better. He smiled more. Joked. But I remember that weekend, how jittery he was. How Anna avoided being alone with him. The storm came on fast that night. Thunder like gunshots. We drank too much. Argued too loudly. And then, a crash. A scream. And fire. The rest is smoke and fragments. We never filed a report. The fire department said lightning struck a tree nearby and sparked the blaze. We told everyone we barely escaped. The truth? There was something else. Something we never discussed. Back then I thought I was protecting Anna. That she was traumatized and silence was mercy. But now reading those words I still see the blood. I'm wondering what she really remembers from that night. And what I don't. Because there was blood. I remember a flash of it on the back of Mark's shirt. I remember Anna's face blank, shocked, like she'd seen something she couldn't name. I remember yelling. My hands burned. And her whispering over and over, "We can't tell anyone. Please." She said it like a prayer. Or a threat. Now I think it might have been both. I walked through the ruins. Found the old fireplace blackened but intact. Near it a rusted metal box, half buried under leaves and ash. It wasn't locked. Inside, a melted flashlight, some old coins, and a photo. Of the three of us. Taken that weekend. Mark's arm around Anna's shoulder. And her smile, wide, radiant, real? Too real. I stared at it for a long time. Then I put it back in the box. When I got home that evening, Anna was in the backyard, pruning the lavender bushes. She didn't hear me at first. Just stood there, clipping stems with surgical precision. When she finally turned, I saw it, the flicker of fear behind her calm expression. "You went somewhere today," she said. I didn't answer. She didn't ask again. We stood in silence for a moment too long. Then she said softly, "Some things are better left buried," and walked past me back into the house. It took me 2 days to find him. Mark had always been slippery. The kind of guy who changed phone numbers like socks, moved houses without telling anyone, and popped up only when it benefited him. But people in small towns remember faces. Especially ones that leave damage. The bartender at O'Malley's remembered him. Construction guy, right? Works odd jobs. Lives out by the train tracks near that broken-down diner. That's where I found him. He opened the door shirtless, tattooed, and hungover. Same crooked grin. Same hollow eyes. For a second, he looked surprised to see me. Then he stepped aside without a word and let me in. The place reeked of beer, sweat, and something metallic. Like rust and regret. "You came all this way to finally punch me in the face?" he asked, flopping onto a sagging couch. "Or is this a family reunion kind of visit?" I didn't answer right away. Just stared at him. Noticed the bottle of painkillers on the coffee table. The same name as on the prescription Anna had thrown out. He followed my eyes. "Ah, you found it. You talked to her?" Mark lit a cigarette. Took his time with the first drag. "She called me 2 weeks ago. Said she was scared. Said she needed to know if I told anyone." "Told anyone what?" He laughed. "Bitter. Man, You still don't know, do you? I said nothing. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. His voice dropped to something darker. You remember that night at the cabin? The storm. The fire. You remember we fought? I nodded. He nodded back. What you don't remember is what you did. My mouth went dry. You were drunk. So was I. But you snapped first. Said I looked at her wrong. That she'd been avoiding your touch for weeks. You kept pushing. Accusing. She tried to calm you down, but you shoved her. I got in your face. You picked up that poker. I stood up so fast the chair screeched. No. You hit me. He tapped the back of his head. Right here. Split the skin. She screamed. I blacked out. He stared at me, smoke curling around his face. When I woke up, the cabin was on fire. She was dragging you out. I felt the blood drain from my face. She told me not to say anything, he said. Said you wouldn't remember. Said if I kept quiet, we could all just pretend it didn't happen. He shrugged. I didn't do it for you. I did it because she begged me. She cried. Said she'd lose everything. Silence. I sat back down slowly. I thought you were the one who I stopped. Mark nodded like he already knew what I meant. Yeah. You've been blaming me for years. But I kept your damn secret. He stood, walked to the window, and exhaled. But now she's scared you're starting to remember. That's why she called. She's terrified, man. And maybe she should be. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Because the worst part wasn't what he said. The worst part was that I did remember the poker. The sound it made when it hit something soft. The weight of it in my hand. The way Anna grabbed me screaming, "You'll kill him." And then the smell of smoke. The screaming. The heat. And her voice in my ear, "Let it burn. Just let it burn." I left without another word. Drove home in silence. When I walked in, Anna was folding laundry. Calm. Composed. Like she hadn't shattered my entire reality. She looked up. Her eyes met mine. And for the first time in years, I saw it. Not fear. Not guilt. Control. Like she'd been managing the pieces all along. Did you see him? She asked softly. I nodded. She held my gaze. Then you understand why we don't talk about it. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. Anna still slept beside me, breathing slow, peaceful. Like the night before hadn't happened. Like I hadn't just discovered my brother and I shared a bloody secret stitched into silence. I watched her sleep. And I wondered how long she'd been playing the role. The careful caretaker. The smiling wife. The keeper of the fire. But now I had a plan. For years, I believed my memories were fractured the way trauma tends to be. But after what Mark said, after what I felt come rushing back, I needed more than foggy flashbacks and broken whispers. I needed proof. So I went back to the cabin. Not just the ruins this time, I called a friend of mine. Max works in land surveying, knows soil, knows fire patterns. Knows how to dig. He owed me a favor. And he didn't ask too many questions. What exactly are we looking for? He asked as we stood among the blackened remains. If there was blood on the floorboards, I said, would it still be detectable? He looked at me sideways. Depends. How long ago? 13 years. He whistled. You're reaching, man. But maybe. If the boards are intact. They weren't. Most had rotted or burned. But near the fireplace, the same place I'd found the old photo, he found something. A patch of soil that was oddly darker, compacted. Max crouched, pulled on gloves, and started scraping carefully. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then he stopped. He looked up at me, pale. You said someone got hit, right? I nodded. He reached into the dirt and pulled out something small, metallic. A button. With dried blood still crusted around the threads. But it wasn't just any button. It was from my shirt. The one I wore that night. I staggered back. Max said nothing, just dropped it into a bag. But my mind was already spiraling. If that was my shirt. If the blood was on my clothes. Then the version Anna fed me, it wasn't about protecting me. It was about controlling the narrative. That night, I sat at the kitchen table while she cooked. Same lavender candle burning beside the stove. Same apron. Same humming. She turned, spatula in hand. You're quiet today. I went back to the cabin. Her hands froze. Just for a second. Then she resumed. Oh. Max found something. She didn't ask what. She didn't have to. I watched her shoulders rise and fall once. Deep breath. Then she turned off the stove. Sat across from me. Her eyes were calm. Almost relieved. I was wondering when you'd finally stop trusting me. I stared. She leaned in slightly. You think I didn't try to forget? You think I didn't want to believe we could move on? But you, She pointed at me, her voice trembling. You hit him. And I covered it. I cleaned your blood-soaked clothes. I lied to the firemen. I watched you forget and never looked back. You manipulated me. I saved you. No, I said. You saved the version of me you could control. You saved your story. Silence. Then she whispered, do you want to tell the kids their father's a monster? And there it was. The threat. Not shouted. Just placed gently on the table like a card turned face up. I stood. Heart pounding. Maybe I said I want them to know the truth. All of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my office holding the button in its plastic bag, replaying everything. The fire. The scream. The lies. I opened my laptop and began writing. Not a confession. Not yet. But a timeline. Every memory I could drag up. Every inconsistency. If I couldn't trust Anna's version, if I couldn't trust Mark's, then I'd build my own. From the ashes up. There's something terrifying about realizing you forgot a person. Not a name. Not a passing face. An entire human being. It happened while I was scrolling through old emails in the archived folder, stuff I hadn't looked at in years. I was hoping for receipts, messages, anything from that summer. I wasn't expecting to see her name. Emily Hart. Subject line, are you ever going to tell him the truth? Dated September 14th. 2 months after the cabin. I opened it with shaking hands. I didn't want to be involved. But I heard you. I saw you. I was halfway up the stairs. You didn't even notice I was there. If Mark knew I was listening. I'm not sure he'd let me leave that night. But I did. And I haven't said a word. Until now. I think he deserves to know. There was no reply. I searched the name. Nothing recent. Just a decade-old Facebook profile barely used. One tagged photo. And a city. 2 hours later, I was in the car. She lived in a quiet apartment building above a florist shop. I knocked once. Then twice. When she opened the door, it took her a second to place me. Then her face tightened. Not surprise. Recognition. And caution. I was wondering when you'd show up, she said. I blinked. You remember me? You don't remember me. She didn't say it as a question. I shook my head slowly. Were you at the cabin? She stepped aside. Come in. The inside of her place was neat but lived in. Teacups stacked in the sink. A scarf tossed over the back of the couch. A cat blinked at me from the windowsill. She sat opposite me, curled into the armchair like someone used to waiting for truth to land like thunder. I was Mark's girlfriend. Kind of. For about 4 months. He didn't bring me around much. Said you and Anna didn't like strangers. She smiled wryly. I wasn't supposed to be at the cabin. But I came up that last night. Mark told me to wait in the car, but I was tired. I slipped in quietly, planning to surprise him. I leaned forward. You heard what happened? She nodded. More than heard. Then she dropped the words like bricks. I saw you hit him. The room spun. You were drunk. Belligerent. She tried to pull you back. You thought Mark and Anna had slept together. You snapped. Grabbed the poker and slammed it into him from behind. She paused. The sound of it, I still hear it. I felt sick. Why didn't you stop it? Her eyes went hard. Because when Anna turned to me, she didn't scream for help. She looked right at me and said, if you say anything, you'll regret it. I swallowed. Why would she? She was scared. But not of you. Not completely. She saw a chance to take control of the situation. She told me to leave. Said she'd handle it. So I did. She looked away. I was 21. Terrified. I thought maybe it was an accident. But then I saw the fire on the news. And I knew it wasn't just smoke. It was a cover. I stood, heart hammering. Why did you write that email? She met my eyes. Because after the fire, I saw her with Mark. Twice. They met up in secret. I don't think it ever ended. I think it started that night. I left in a daze. So many versions of the truth. And each one made me smaller. I thought Anna was the victim. Then the manipulator. Then my savior. Now I didn't know what to believe. But I knew one thing. If Emily was telling the truth, if Anna and Mark were still connected, then I wasn't just the monster. I was the fool. And I was done playing the fool. I got home just after dark. The kids were asleep. Their doors closed, nightlights glowing faintly beneath the frames. The kind of peaceful domesticity that makes your chest ache when you know it's all built on rot. Anna was in the living room, curled on the couch, reading one of her mystery novels. Hair tied up. Wineglass untouched beside her. She looked up when I walked in. You've been gone all day. I sat across from her. I saw Emily. The smile vanished. I waited. Watched her absorb it. She didn't ask, Emily who? Didn't pretend. She just stared at me. Then placed the book down with quiet precision. What did she tell you? Everything. Her jaw tensed. Not fear calculation. That damn look again. Like she was always 3 steps ahead. She was always weak, Anna said finally. Mark used to call her his invisible girl. Faded into the background unless he needed something. She saw you. With him. After the fire. Anna laughed under her breath. She saw what she wanted to see. I saw the prescription. I found the button. I found your notebook. I talked to Mark. She flinched at that last name. Funny, she whispered. You always hated him. But now you believe him over me. No. I don't believe either of you. I leaned forward. But I believe myself. She raised an eyebrow. Oh. I remember the poker. The swing. The scream. I remember your hands pulling me back. I remember the fire. But I also remember how calm you were when it all ended. How quickly you told me what happened. What I should remember. I stood. You've been rewriting the story for over a decade. I just let you. Because it was easier than asking questions. Anna's face shifted. The edges softened. The mask cracked. She didn't look angry. She looked tired. Do you want me to apologize? She asked. To admit I used your blackout? That I chose to let you live with a cleaner version of the truth? I said nothing. She stood slowly. Walked toward the window. I loved you, she said quietly. I really did. But you were unraveling back then. You hated your brother. You hated yourself. And I hated being invisible to both of you. She turned and now her eyes were glassy. You think I planned everything? No. But once it happened, once the lie was in motion, it felt like power for the first time. I stepped closer. Are you still seeing him? A beat of silence. No. I watched her closely. But you were. She nodded once. After the fire? She closed her eyes. He understood me in ways you never tried to. My hands curled into fists. And yet I said you stayed. You raised our children. You kept up the game. Her voice cracked. Because I wanted it to mean something. I turned away. This time it wasn't anger burning in my chest. It was grief. For the marriage we could have had. For the man I could have been. For the truth that was buried for so long it began to rot. I walked to the study. Opened the drawer. Took out the envelope. The one she hid from me weeks ago. I handed it to her. You forgot to burn this. She opened it slowly. Read the letter inside. Her hands shook. I already knew what it was, a lawyer's name, a drafted separation agreement. Not signed yet. But almost. She looked up at me. You're ending it? I nodded. We're done lying. That night, she didn't sleep beside me. And in the morning, she was gone. But her scent lingered. Lavender and smoke. Anna never came back. No suitcase. No note. No dramatic goodbye. Just absence. It took the kids 2 days to notice. I told them she went to stay with Grandma for a bit, that she needed space. They nodded. Kids are smarter than we think. They hear the silence. They read the tension in your eyes. By the end of the week, our daughter asked, did you and Mommy stop loving each other? I told her the truth. We stopped telling the truth. And when that happens, love gets very tired. I signed the separation papers 3 weeks later. She never contested them. Never called. Never wrote. I sent her one final message before blocking her number. I remember now. All of it. I forgive you. But that doesn't mean I want you near me ever again. She never replied. But she didn't need to. I kept the house. Not because I wanted it, but because someone needed to keep the illusion stable for the kids' sake. I changed the locks. Burned the lavender candles in the fireplace until they stopped smelling like her. The photo from the cabin, I mailed it to Mark. No note. Just that image. The three of us smiling, not knowing how close we stood to ruin. He didn't respond either. Good. Nights were the worst. That first month I kept waking up expecting to hear her move through the hallway. That quiet grace, that familiar rustle of sheets as she'd climb into bed late. Sometimes I'd sit up, heart racing, thinking I heard the door open. But it never did. Eventually, the house settled. And so did I. I started therapy. I told the story slowly. Fragment by fragment. About the fire. The lie. The rage. The forgetfulness that wasn't forgetfulness at all, but fear wearing a memory skin. My therapist said something that stuck with me. You're not healing from betrayal. You're healing from who you had to become to survive it. That hit harder than anything else. Because for years I was the quiet husband. The provider. The man who didn't ask too many questions because peace was better than truth. But peace is a coward when it's built on silence. One night, my son came into the office while I was sorting through old boxes. Were you and Mom happy? He asked, holding a crumpled drawing he found from years ago, stick figures under a red sun. All smiling. I didn't lie. For a while. But happiness isn't a promise. It's a choice you have to keep making. And sometimes people stop choosing it. He nodded like he understood. Like he'd already seen enough. I hugged him longer than usual. Months passed. The lawyer finalized the custody schedule. The court never asked about the fire. No one ever will, because it doesn't exist in any system, in any report. Only in memory. And memory is both unreliable and unforgiving. Now, when I pass a lavender field on the way to work, I don't flinch. I roll the windows down. Let it pass. Let it go. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because I'm done pretending it didn't happen. That's the real ending. Not escape. Not justice. Just, finally, the whole truth. And the space it leaves behind.